Part 2 and completion of my 000 build is coming up right now. Well, hey guys, and welcome back. So if you've been following along, I completed 000 in my last video, so I'm going to go ahead and set him aside. And so I'm going to begin with the second part of our build, and that is to convert this R4I9 kit into his counterpart BT-1. So again, here's some pictures of BT-1, and he's an astromech droid that is black in color and has a different head that comes with the R4I9 kit. I was able to find this file on Thingivers. I'll put the link below, but this is the way the head is looking, and I was able to print it in clear resin with the intent of lighting it from the inside with a red LED so we can light up that red eye that he's got. And as you can see here, the kit again is molded in this dark blue color, so I'm going to have to paint it. And so I'm going to get started first of all with priming the kit and then painting the black color with Tamiya's metallic black. The droid also has some red accents. This is a picture of the Black Series figure. I'm going to use this as a guide for painting the droid. And for the red accents, I plan to use this Mecha red, or this metallic red from Vallejo's Mecha color line. Now, before we get started, what I'd like to do is to spend a minute just to show you some details of how I went about sizing the head down for this project. The Thingivers file that I used for this is a file designed to create a replacement head for the R2 units you can purchase at Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland and Disney World, which are much larger scale models of the astromech droid. So for the benefit of those of you with a 3D printer, I thought I'd spend a minute just to give you some details about this. So the BT head was created by designer Does Not Fempu, which by the way, I love the name, and can be found by searching BT-1 on Thingiverse. You'll also note that there are 7 files you can download for this project, but you're only going to need 5 of them. 2 of these are pins that are designed to attach the head to the droid that you can purchase from Galaxy's Edge. The parts you're going to need are the BT-1 HP, which is for the holo projector, the BT-1 top, which is the head, a BT-1 sidebar, which is a piece that fits into the side of his head, the BT-1 middle, the middle that fits right under the head, and BT-1 bottom, which is the ring that attaches it to the rest of the main body. So the top of the body measures 37 millimeters in diameter, which is what led me to sizing the bottom section to the same dimension. Doing so reduces this down to a percentage of 27.61% of its original size. So I simply took the remaining pieces and sized them down to the same percentage. So the way this is going to work is by attaching the bottom piece to part C115. And using this part will allow the head to swivel. Okay, well, you know what? I decided before moving on to the body to go ahead and finalize my plans here for lighting the head. Now, I actually printed multiple copies of the head just to have some backup in case something happened to one of them. But also in this circumstance, it proved to be helpful because it gives me an extra head to experiment on before having to work on the final piece. So let me just summarize what I've done here. I first primed it after applying some liquid mask to the main eye, and after that I applied some metallic black. This is the color we're using for the droid, and then I placed it over our light source to see if that was enough light blocking, and it wasn't. So it required actually applying some flat black along the interior, or at least another layer of paint there, and I placed that over the light source and it seemed to be enough to light block. So after that, I started working on the main eye, applying some clearer orange and red to give us a mixture there of orange-red color, and that works out pretty well. However, I was getting some striations, or appearance of striations, through that red eye. That's kind of a byproduct of the whole printing process. So I used this clear piece of styrene that I sanded over and to act as a diffuser, and I think that's going to work out pretty well. So as for the lights on the side, these will be easy because you can just use a toothpick to clear away the paint and you'll get some illumination through there. As for these other lights, I think I'm going to not mess with them. The holo projector shouldn't be glowing unless it's on, so I'm just going to glue that into place. And then I just can't quite get this to look round, this other light here, so I'm just going to leave that alone. So that's what's going to be required, is to apply 3 coats of paint essentially. I need to use the primer, flat black, and then the metallic black, and then proceed with what I've done here with the eye. Alright, so here's the completed head, and I'm very pleased with the way it all turned out. I was able to successfully get this to look round here on the side, so and I also painted it with Tamiya's clear blue. So I think that's going to work out well. Okay, so a little bit more work to do on this, including a decal that I have to make for the top markings. But for now, I'm going to set this aside and begin work on the body. So what I did was I primed the pieces on the tree, then painted as I went along. This was followed by assembly, which I'm not going to take the time to show you every single step here since it's pretty straightforward. Okay, I'm going to assemble now the pieces that the head will be resting on. This is going to rest on top of here. This is the bottom piece that I 3D printed. And as you can see, there's a hole now in the middle that I drilled out with my Dremel to accommodate the LED. So let's go ahead and glue these together, and then once they are pieced together, I'm going to go ahead and paint them the metallic black. Okay, so moving right along now, we've got this piece glued together, and it's going to be a little taller on the droid than I would prefer, but yeah, I think it's going to be okay. So this is going to go here, this will attach to here, and then of course the head will rest on top of that. Okay, so now that those are set, let's continue to work on the rest of the droid here. The other part that's going to be a little time-consuming is to outline some of these panels in silver. Next came painting all of the silver details, and there was really no easy way around this. They all had to be masked and painted with Vallejo silver. As you can imagine, this process was a little tedious, but it paid off in the end. Okay, I'm just going to stop here for a second just to get you caught up here. As I've shown you, I've done the painting. That went really well. A little tedious, but there was only one way to do that, and that's with masking all of that. I did create a decal sheet, at least a decal I should say, for the top. It's not perfect. It didn't come out as symmetrical as I wanted to, but I think that's going to be okay. And the decal was just made by taking some shapes, geometric shapes, and forming this design here on Photoshop, and I printed it on white decal paper. So each of these were cut out separately and placed onto his head. Also finished painting some of the silver parts here on his head, so that is good to go. And I'm ready now to show you how this is all going to get lit up. So what we've got then is a mega warm white LED, which after testing a couple different options, I think will work best. It's actually fairly bright, even with just a 3-volt coin-sized battery. So the other thing that I can do with this too is that when mounted on here, I can actually kind of angle it the way I want to make sure that we get the light directed to the front parts of our head. So this is going to be placed now onto the droid like so, and then of course the head will be placed on top of here after putting the middle section into position. And this will come feeding through the center. We've got our middle leg here that I have drilled a hole into, and the wire will feed along here, and I dug a tiny little trench there to account for the wires. And again, that's the beauty of using these magnet wires. They're so thin that you just need a small little trench there to accommodate them. It's going to feed through to the bottom foot of the middle leg and down through the display. So what I have left now to assemble is really just the rest of the main body, and that should be pretty straightforward. Okay guys, we're here now with the completed BT-1, and I have to say I'm very pleased with the way he turned out. The 3D printed parts worked out quite well. Quick note about painting, when I applied the metallic black to the resin parts that make up the neck portion here, the finish came out glossier for some reason, so I just used Vallejo's matte medium to match the finish, and that did the trick. So if you're going to be using those parts, just something to keep in mind if you're going to use the Tamiya metallic black. It might come out a little bit different there, so you can match it up by dulling that up a bit with the matte medium. I went ahead and weathered him a bit, and I did the same with 000, so he is all set to go. If you want to see him lit up, though, you're going to have to wait for the final reveal. In the meantime, let's go ahead and work on and complete the display base. Okay, so the main pieces of the display are the walls, and I've created a light wall here that I showed you earlier, and we have this wall here. So this is made up of separate pieces. I had to separate them this way because my printer wasn't large enough to print the entire thing. So what I'm going to be doing is attaching these here to this thicker piece of styrene. It's a little bit heavier weight to make sure that it stands up straight here for us. And to attach these here, I'm going to be using a two-part epoxy. I'm going to be doing that because it will give us time for it to set, so we want to be sure all these are straight. I'm going to allow a little bit more width for the wall here, so that when we put the walls at a corner, you'll see the full extent of each wall versus partly hidden. And so we're going to go ahead first and begin with this one, and then we'll work on the light wall. Alright, so before proceeding with everything else, I wanted to show you I'm going to be moving ahead with using this wooden base right here. And so we're going to be mounting our walls onto here. And this is now the primed secondary wall that's going to go on this side. And then we have our light wall that will go on this side here. Turn that around so you can see that. So we've got a corner now. And as I'm looking at this, what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and make some additional walls. I'm going to add another wall to this side and a partial wall to this side here. So I went back to the Thingivers site to see if there's other pieces I could print out, and there are. As I was starting to configure them, however, I decided just to kind of try my hand at creating one out of styrene plastic, and that's what we've got going on here. What I've done now is I've taken just styrene plastic and cut out some geometric shapes. You can see here I'm trimming them with my X-Acto knife, and just coming up with a design that I think would complement our other wall, and I think this is going to work. So I just had a few odds and ends I hooked up to this, and once I glue this into place and prime it, I think it'll work really well and complement our other wall. Now, as for lighting the light wall, I was kind of laying out some stuff on this piece here. This is the back, this is going to go on the back of our light wall here, and this is where we're going to mount our strip LEDs. So what I have now again are these strip LEDs that I purchased from HDA Model Works, and I just have some tape on them right now because I was experimenting with this. But essentially what it's going to be laid out is I'm going to put one strip along these two lines here and one strip along here. And I've already tested this, and the light looks actually nice and diffuse, that it lights up the entire wall. I thought I would have to put other things to make that light more diffuse, but I don't. Okay, so as you can see, I finished up the wall here and the extension. I think the scratch-built walls look pretty good. I think they fit right in. And so I wanted to tape this together to show you what I have in mind. The walls will be set against this corner with the figure standing about right here. I'm going to place some styrene sheet on the bottom for the flooring and paint that gloss black. Okay, so what's next now is to work on the lighting for the light wall. So the first step was to light block the backing, and this was done by applying several layers of black craft paint. Next, I used masking tape to lay down the strip lighting into the desired pattern. I then secured this with drops of superglue, followed by Instaset solution to allow for faster drying. Then, it was time for a light test. And it looks like it's working perfectly. Now, one thing I noticed in the test is that the side rods were glowing, and that's because they're hollow. Even though this wall will be placed right up against the other two, I decided to limit this glow by applying a little bit more craft paint along the inside. Once this was dry, it was time to permanently attach the backing to our wall. And now it's complete. So now that the light wall was done, it was time to finish and prep the other walls for mounting onto the base. The first step was to add side supports that also function to provide points of adhesion and attachment. Next was to prep the droids by providing some wire extension, and it's here that I decided to add resistors to both droids so that I could run everything off of a single 9-volt battery. Next was to add the flooring for the display, and this was a sheet of 0.5mm styrene that was attached using tacky glue. Once it was dried, I placed the droids onto the base and marked off where they'd be standing. Then, I drilled holes for all of the wires for the droids, and also those for the light wall. Okay guys, well this is how the stand is looking now, and it is pretty much set to go. I've got everything painted black. I decided to go with metallic black for the flooring, and I've left some places here with some liquid masking fluid, only to leave these areas without paint so that we get better adherence for our figures, as well as our walls. So it was time to attach the walls to the display, and this was done using super glue. Upon further inspection, however, I noticed that there were some gaps between some of the walls, so I filled these in from the back with hot glue. And to conceal them further, I painted them over with black. Well, that's pretty much it. The last step is to attach the droids, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, solder everything else up, and show you the completed project in just a second. Okay guys, well here we now have the completed project. This started out to be a build of the Bandai 000 kit, but I ended up converting an R4i9 kit to create his counterpart after finding a 3D printing file on Thingivers, which I used to create BT-1. Again, if you're not familiar with these two characters, they're from the Star Wars comic universe. 000 was released as a limited edition kit last year at Comic-Con, and both he and BT-1 are 1/12 scale, with 000 measuring 6 inches in height and BT measuring 4 inches. So this project actually combines model building with 3D printing and is a great example of how it complements our hobby. Let's go ahead and review the conversion first. The BT-1 unit was originally a Bandai R4i9 kit, but since he shares the same body style as BT-1, I was able to use it for creating a replica of 000's assassin droid counterpart. The head was found on Thingivers and easily scaled to the appropriate size on CheetahBox software by matching the diameter of the body from the Bandai kit. The file included not only the head, but 2 other rings that are needed for attaching him properly to the body, and by printing him with clear resin, I was able to light up his main eye and a few other points. BT was painted with Tamiya's metallic black, Vallejo silver, and Vallejo's mech red for the silver and red accents. I think these colors worked out great. I was also able to create a decal for the pattern on the top of his head, which made it much easier than painting that pattern. And overall, I have to say I am very pleased with the end results. Now I should note that I'm not certain he's an exact replica because some of the drawings that I've seen show some different configurations of the body panels. However, the action figure made by the Hasbro Black Series collection does match the body you see here, which is essentially what we see with an R2 unit. It's just black in color. Moving on to 000, he was a little more involved when it came to running the wires through. Unlike BT, which was just a straight drop down through the middle leg, the wires had to be fed from his head down through his body. This required drilling and making trenches throughout in order to accommodate the wires. If you take on this project, I'd highly recommend the pre-wired Pico-size SMDs from Evans Designs because of the thin wires they come with. Also, I would refrain from ordering red SMDs and go with the warm white since the pre-wired red ones come with a resistor. However, the one thing I would recommend in addition to that is ask Evans Designs to send you resistors separately from the warm white SMDs because it will be necessary to attach those resistors in order to use a single power source as I did, which was a 9-volt battery. 000 is otherwise a straightforward build when it comes to the construction, and both droids are nicely detailed, which is something we've all come to expect from Bandai. And the model kit of 000 does come molded in this black metallic color that you see here, which actually looks really nice. I felt it was good enough and didn't really need repainting or refinishing. And lastly, I'm very pleased with the display, which turned out to be a combination of 3D printing and scratch building in this case. Both the light wall and the wall that it corners with are both 3D printed, while the third wall was scratch built. And finally, one finishing touch that I added to the project was this little Star Wars logo that you see there. Also found that on Thingiverse. A number of different Star Wars logos you can download there, all for free. Alright, well that pretty much wraps it up for this project. I hope you enjoyed following along as much as I enjoyed putting it together. This really was a fun one to work on. If you have any questions, as usual, feel free to leave a comment here or contact me at interestedinmother@gmail.com. I think this is the first time I've really combined 3D printing and a model kit like this in this fashion. I definitely look forward to doing more of that in the future. There seems to be a lot of possibilities out there with 3D printing. And if you're interested in getting into 3D printing, I wanted to make a quick comment about that. The Elegoo Mars that I'm using right now has dropped to $190. And the reason why some of these printers now are dropping is because there's a whole new generation printers just on the verge of being released here. These are the monochrome printers, which are going to be faster and more efficient, and a number of them are going to be larger. You know, the Elegoo Mars, tried and true printer, it's worked out really well for me. Even though I eventually do plan on upgrading at some point, I'm really not in a hurry of doing that because the Mars has pretty much met most of my needs at this point. You know, I can definitely see the advantage of having something larger and something faster, but you know, it's definitely worked out really well. And if you're interested in looking at any of these machines, I'd highly recommend going to Facebook and checking out the groups that are affiliated with whatever machine you're looking into, because you'll get some pretty honest feedback about that product. And people are always willing to share their experiences with you. And let me just wrap up by just thanking you for all the nice comments that you guys leave. It's always a pleasure to hear from you, and I hope that you guys stay safe and healthy. We're almost through 2020, and certainly hoping that 2021 will be a much better year. But hang in there, you guys, and you take care, and I'll see you in the next video.